Okay, Bitcoin daily time frame was still bearish from a long-term perspective. And as mentioned last week, if you remember, we do have a possible potential bullish scenario if and only if we break above this high. And the possible scenario would be an impulse correction, impulse forming a higher high, impulse correction. We are currently here. Let's see if we will have this impulse movement forming a higher high, diving inside this area, higher high before the next impulse movement push the price lower. Let's delete everything for now, and that's it. Okay, so this is a potential bullish scenario from a medium-term perspective, and then the bears would take over, lining up with the overall bearish trend. Or we might be pushing lower from here if we break below this low, which we are currently approaching. Anyway, I'll show to you from lower time frames, but this is just for the bigger vision. A correction after this big impulse, a correction. You might have this before the next impulse push price lower to be lining up with the lower bound 12K lower trend line orange and so on. So this would be a massive zone if we reach it to look for buy setups. For now, you are slightly bullish inside this range. If you go to H4 time frame, can't really say much. You are stuck inside this range, just like last week. And if you notice, I haven't changed anything like from last week. I have a separate layout for this. For these sessions, for it to be a good practical example, so we update the charts together in a practical way. So we're currently sitting around this zone. If we break it downward, it wouldn't be good. Expect further bearish movement. I have my other alert or next alert here around the lower bound of this zone. For the boost to kick in now, we have two possible scenarios, just like USDT dominance. If you remember, this is it, a short-term one and the long-term and the medium-term one. Exact opposite for Bitcoin, a short-term one where I have my alert, and the medium-term one where I also have my alerts. For the boost to take over from a short-term perspective, we need to see this break. Then we'll be expecting this movement, and then we need to see this break for the boost to take over from a medium-term perspective, and then I'll be expecting something like, if we break above this, of course, something like this. This, a higher high, to finally like make one more correction before the bears take over again and push the price lower. But for now, we might still be going down from here, especially if we break below this low. If you go to H4 time frame, we can clearly see it. If we break below the orange zone, in this case, further bearish move would be expected till around this area. Of course, it's an entire zone, so you could also make it like a little bit higher like this, right? So around this area, and I'll be looking for bus stops here. That's why I have my alert here. And if we break it downward, it wouldn't be good. Expect then further bearish movement till the lower bound of the channel. That's it for Bitcoin. Sorry. For Ethereum, a very similar movement. This is our midway zone. We rejected our midway support and resistance. For example, now, of course, it's a resistance. Okay, because it was acting as support previously, now broken downward again. So we tested it and retested this little low, this little high, right? So it's also a minus point resistance. We rejected it and we are trading lower. If we break below this blue one, expect further bearish movement till around the 1K zone. Lately, we formed this if you want to call it a triangle or a wedge pattern and so on, and we broke this low downward. We made a classic retest as a wick, and we are currently trading lower. For the bulls to reclaim this resistance, we need to see a break above it. In this case, further bullish move would be expected till around this supply zone. For now, we are bearish. If we go a little bit higher, it would be a correction before the bears take over again. And as mentioned, if we break this one downward, expect a movement till the 1K zone. Okay, that's it for Ethereum. And of course, you can even, if you want, zoom into lower time frames and see it even better. Broke below these lows, traded higher, and so on. So this is basically it. I can't really say much here. We are currently in the middle of nowhere. I want to break above this for the boost to take over, or a break below this for the bears to take over and push the price lower again. That's it. Let's move forward to NWC. So last week we had an aggressive movement upward, rejected this resistance, and we traded lower. Hello Ace, hope you're doing good. And we also got Talent Vision. Happy to see you here. If you have any questions anytime, feel free to ask it in the members talk or in the comment section of YouTube or any platform, and I would be happy to answer all your questions. For NWC, we are currently diving inside this demand zone, which we spotted from weekly time frame from 0.02 to 0.05. And for the bulls to reclaim control now, we need to see a break back above this gray area, above the 0.055. Last week, we had an aggressive movement upward, as you clearly notice. We broke above these with one candle, of course, and we traded higher. Okay, we rejected it, traded higher, rejected this resistance again, and also the upper trend line, as you can see in red, which is covering this entire bearish trend. For the bulls to take over again, from a short-term perspective, we need to see this break, and then from a long-term perspective, we need to see this break. It would be breaking above the channel, above the last major high, above this entire range, and so on. Then we'll be able to say that we are now we are now bullish again. For now, we are bearish, trading inside the zone, especially that we broke lately below these lows. So I would like to see the bulls breaking back above the 0.055 to reclaim control. Then we'll be able to trade higher. Okay, so now and as usual, I have a big list, so I'll try to go over them all by order. If you would like me to go over a specific one, please let me know in the members talk or in the comments, and I will be happy to do it. For now, I'll be going over the list one by one. Okay, let me see if Joseph is here. Okay, he's not here. Joseph, when you're watching the recording, this is your Galatasaray. As mentioned previously multiple times, we were stuck here for a couple of weeks, that we'd like to see the bulls breaking above this area for them to take over, and we finally have had the break. We broke it upward and we traded higher. We also had a retest, so now we have a shift in momentum from bearish to bullish finally, yes. And when we retested, it would be a correction, so it's an impulse correction, and then we'll be expecting the next impulse to push the price higher. So as we retest this area, for those who didn't buy yet, we'll be looking for buy stops here on lower time frames for extra confirmation to look for this next bullish impulse movement upwards. For seed, for dear boss Mac, let's wait a minute, maybe my connection is weak. Okay, so for seed, as mentioned last week, Mac, unfortunately we broke below this, which I didn't like. If you go to weekly, we are now bearish. We have been bullish previously, now we are bearish. So every bullish movement now would be a correction before the next bearish impulse movement push the price lower. And we would remain bearish until or unless we break above this last high. Now, since we traded lower, I can even make this one a little bit lower to cover these ones. So for us to trade higher, I would like to see a break above this 12.5. If we break it higher, we'll be expecting a bullish movement. For now, we are bearish and we'll be expecting something like this. As we approach this 5 support, demand, and so on, we'll be looking, of course, for short-term buy setups. But from a long-term perspective, I'm still waiting for a break above this last high, which now I made it a little bit lower. Okay, on CHZ, we are currently approaching this previous major low. We have a demand zone right here. If we go to daily time frame, can't really say much except that we are approaching the 0.1 round number. Make it one a little bit higher. Let's go for 8.5. Yeah. So inside the zone, around these lows, demand zone, and so on, round number, we'll be looking for buy setups, except if we break it downward, then expect further bearish movement till around the 0.05, which is also a round number, and a demand zone. Let's make it in blue. Fantastic. So you know what? Let's delete this one. It's annoying. And this is like for the boost takeover from a long-term perspective. That's also related to keep it clean and move it aside. That's it. For now, around the 0.1, we'll be looking for buy setups. If we zoom into H4 time frame, we have been bearish since since late December, or since the beginning of December, and we have been bearish. We have this big impulse, and now it's going flat. For the boost to take over now, we need to see a break above the previous last high, which is around this area. If we extend this one like this, that would be it. So falling broadening wedge, last major high. If we trade higher from here, break them both above this trend line, above this orange zone. In this case, the bulls will take over and we'll be expecting a bullish movement. For now, we are bearish. We might still trade lower, form a new high like this, and then we will update our zone to become this high, and we'll be buying on this break upward. For now, let's take it step by step. We are currently here. That's our last high. Wait for a break above it for the bulls to take over. Let's move forward. Next, we've got MATIC. We have been stuck inside a big range, as you clearly see, and we are currently approaching the lower band of it. This is all the lower band, as you see from these rejections, right? So we'll be looking for buy setups. Sorry, starting from here, knowing that we can dive inside the zone before we trade higher, unless we break the 0.62 downward. In this case, further bearish movement would be expected. But for now, around the support, we are looking for buy setups. For the boost to take over, we need to see a break above the last major high, which is currently here. This is why you see my alert right there. Meanwhile, we are bearish and we can still go lower, make a new lower high, and then break this new high upwards for the boost to take over, of course. Okay, on ADA, so we're still trading lower. We have a massive demand zone right here for the boost to take over. We need to see a break above the high, but for now, let's make this one in blue for them to be the same color. So this is the 0.1 round number, a demand zone, support, previously resistance, now support, and so on. So if you go to daily time frame, we're still trading inside this long-term bearish channel. For the boost to take over from a long-term perspective, I still need to see a break above the last high, which is currently here, or form a new high and then break it upwards. In this case, I'll be updating my zone. For now, it's here, and now I'm looking for a buy from a short-term perspective by breaking above this short-term high for a small correction movement upwards. Or, of course, meanwhile, we are bearish and we can still trade lower till around this demand zone, where I also have an alert. If you go to H4 time frame, that's it. Can't really say much. This is our last high, which I showed you from H4. For the boost to take over, we need to see this, and then we'll be expecting a shorter bullish movement upward. Meanwhile, we can still trade lower, break below this previous low, and we'll be expecting further bearish movements. If you go move forward to Atom, can't really say much around the support zone. For the boost to take over from a long-term perspective, we need to see a break above this high. And if we break below this 8.5, expect further bearish movement. It would be the previous low, a support zone, broken downward, and so on. So it wouldn't be good for Atom if we break below this 8.5. From a short-term perspective, for the bulls to take over, I want to see a break above this high. Of course, the bulls are already in control from a short-term perspective after breaking above this high, and you can clearly see it, higher highs, higher lows, right? You can even draw a channel like this, make an offset for it. That's it. Of course, if you break it downward, we'll be expecting a movement till the 8.5, which we can also look for buy setups around, unless it's broken downward like this. For now, for the bulls to take over from a medium-term perspective, and or like if you want to say to remain in control, we need to see a break above this 9.35, 9 points, around this area. Then we'll be expecting a bullish movement, and as mentioned from daily, for the bulls to take over from a medium-term perspective, I would like to see a break above this last major high.